Thanks so much for being here. We'd like to welcome you to the programmatic part of tonight. We're the Sustainable Business Council. I'm Lisa Swallow. I've been a board member for 6 years, and I'm very proud to be affiliated with this organization. This is the second year that we've brought in a nationally recognized figure to speak to us about sustainable development and how businesses can move forward profitably and in an environmentally benign and socially just way. So it's a pretty exciting and timely topic, and in a moment our esteemed mayor will introduce our speaker. The Sustainable Business Council is on the eve of its 10th anniversary. Am I echoing, or is that just me? Sorry. Okay, sorry. I'm not used to speaking in front of a mic. I talk for a living, but I don't speak in front of a mic. We're on the eve of our 10th anniversary as Sustainable Business Council. In 2000, Paul Hawken, who's the author of Natural Capitalism, came to Missoula and delivered a keynote lecture, and it was a real pivotal moment for a lot of folks here in the community. And a group of people in a breakaway session got together and founded the Sustainable Business Council. And I believe there's 4 or 5 of the founders here. I'd like them, I'm going to read the names of the 8 founders, and I think 5 of them are here tonight, and I'd like them to kind of raise their hands so we can recognize them. It's pretty visionary in 2000 and 2001 to be talking about sustainable business. So the founders are Susan Anderson, Dave Harmon, Chuck Irestone, Ron Mueller, Jim Parker's out here, right there, Pete Talbot, where's Pete, back in there, Jeff Smith, and Evelyn Whittle. Where's Evelyn? Oh, there she is in the corner. So again, this was pretty forward thinking to merge the ideas of economic prosperity with environmental and social issues 10, 12 years ago. That wasn't on a lot of people's radars. So it's been a very successful organization here in Missoula. We're membership driven, we're a nonprofit, and we're pretty excited to see the turnout tonight. I'd also like to give a big shout out to all the folks that have been involved. The School of Business Administration and Dean Gianchetta sponsors this annual event. And tomorrow night we'd like to invite you all to come to the 6 p.m. lecture at Gallagher Business Building, room 106. And Cheri's going to share the full story of Sierra Nevada's sustainability success. We'd also like to send out tons of thanks to our sponsors, Montana Rail Link, Cherry Creek Radio, Energetics, and special recognition to Summit Beverage. They're a locally owned 3rd-generation business. We've got the father, Dale, is here. Greg and Mike are here, and they've done a wonderful job setting this evening up. We'd really like to thank them for donating the Sierra Nevada beer. And there's also 48 glasses that people can take, 24 at each end of the bar. So whoever gets there first gets to take home a glass. A glass. And by the way, the beer cups we're drinking out of tonight are compostable. Those all go in your compost bins and are made of corn-based raw materials and will compost. I'd also like to thank MCAT for filming. We appreciate the great tasting staff, which is Ronnie, the lovely facility here at the Loft, Bernice's for the wonderful food, and for the fabulous local brewers in attendance. Cheers to Mayor Engen and to Beth Shank. Where's Beth? There she is, for facilitating this evening, and also to Cheri, of course, for traveling all the way from Chico. It's been sort of a harrowing day, coming in 45-mile-an-hour winds, to share her expertise, and also for all the SBC members and board members that are here tonight. And lastly, none of this would have happened without Drew Little. She is Sustainable Business Council's program coordinator, hiding back there in the corner. She has worked tirelessly to make tonight's event and tomorrow night's lecture happen. So here to say a few words about the local sustainable business community and to introduce our speaker and facilitator is our very own local celebrity, Mayor John Engen.
Thank you, Lisa. The standard for local celebrity clearly has plummeted with the snow. It's a pleasure to see all of you. The sound system makes me feel as if I'm in concert, so that's fabulous. Lisa has heavily scripted me this evening so that I don't make any mistakes. Unfortunately, she's done that in about 9-point type. You are saving paper, yes. Though my eyes are no longer sustainable, I'm afraid. It is a pleasure. So some of you may know we're trying to do our best at the City of Missoula in lots of different ways in terms of tempering our footprint. And lots of folks in this room have volunteered to help us with that effort over time. And frankly, without committed volunteers, we wouldn't be able to do it. So thank you all very much for your efforts. Before long, we'll have, we've got an emissions inventory today, and now we have the pesky task of actually dealing with it. But again, volunteers are on the case, and I'm grateful for all of that. How many folks here are involved in brewing beer? Raise your hands for me, would you? All right, so I quit drinking a couple years ago. I apologize for what's happened to your businesses since then. I have a lot more money, but I'm not nearly as good looking as I used to be at about 10 o'clock in the evening. I don't know what happened. But for the better part of...
You're not as funny either.
Just wait. Tim O'Leary, ladies and gentlemen, he's here all evening and has parking tickets, oddly enough. More now than before. But the fact is, I spent a lot of time enjoying our local fair, and it was fantastic. And when I wasn't enjoying the local fair, I must confess I would occasionally have a beverage from Sierra Nevada. So very much looking forward to learning more about the fine work that's going on there. And I won't mention bicycles or anything, right? That's, yeah. Really? Yeah. No fat tire jokes? No, all right. I am going to introduce a fabulous human being, Beth Shank, who has really from the ground up at St. Patrick Hospital and Health Sciences Center built a program around sustainability in a place where institutional change is not fleet and is very complicated. There are lots of systems at play at that hospital, but Beth, undaunted, says we're going to make things better and has been doing so tirelessly. She's fantastic. She is an education committee member with the Sustainable Business Council, and as I said, does the sustainability work at St. Pat's, has a master's degree in nursing from Arizona State University, which I didn't know they even had a master's degree in nursing. That's fantastic. And is currently working towards her doctorate because she clearly has no ambition. That's fantastic, Beth. So you'll hear more from Beth and our speaker this evening. Cheri, I'm very glad that you made it. I apologize for the weather. As I told some folks earlier, that's the former mayor's issue. The good weather is all about me. Yeah. We will plow the streets for you this evening, however. So Cheri is the Environmental Sustainability Coordinator for Sierra Nevada Brewing, all the way in Chico, California, and has been with the company for 5 years. Is responsible for educating employees, peers, and consumers on environmental issues and programs, maintaining current policies and projects, and working on new project development and deployment. Among her many tasks, she's responsible for Sierra Nevada's greenhouse gas inventory, monitoring energy use, conservation, generation, managing waste avoidance, recycling, and composting efforts, researching and implementing alternative fuel options. I'm tired already.
Yeah, you can stop.
and works toward water conservation and reuse, and occasionally apparently drinks a beer. She has a BA and an MA in environmental geography. With that, you'll learn a bunch more. Thanks, folks, and congratulations to the SBC for a fantastic decade of serving the community.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi, nice to see you. Is it echoing badly or not too bad? Perfect. Thanks. Thank you, Mayor, and Cheri, nice to meet you and have you here. Basically, I think we should just get on with the program. Yes? And so I think what we'll do, here's what we're going to do. Cheri is going to address us a little bit and just give you an introduction, but her main address is tomorrow night, so we hope you'll all come to that. And that is in the Gallagher Building at 7. 6. Okay? And so this is more of an informal get-together for friends and people who have been involved with the Sustainable Business Council. And what was really exciting to me is the brewers, especially those who have let us know in advance, have a chance to come up. We'd like you to come up so it's captured for MCAT and so we can hear it. Tell us a bit about your program and then you can ask a question. And then we have a number of written-in questions that I'll moderate, and then we have questions from the field. Sound good? Thank you, Cheri.
Thanks. Thanks. Wow. I guess I'm the short one here. So thank you. This is quite the turnout. Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it. I'm actually really excited to be in Missoula. Missoula has a very good reputation, actually, from a sustainability perspective. And it's exciting to be able to share some best practices with not only the brewers, but the business community as a whole. So I thank you for bringing me out here. Appreciate it. I hope to have some fun, despite the horrible flight in. The beer makes it a little easier. So I wanted to give kind of just a brief overview on the Sierra Nevada Sustainability Program. As Beth has mentioned, tomorrow is the big lecture, so I'm going to go into super detail in our program tomorrow. So I'm going to try to not give away, the whole bit that I'm going to do tomorrow in case anybody wants to do both. But basically, little history about Sierra Nevada Brewing Company in case you are not familiar with us. We are in Chico, California. That's Northern California. We are actually 100 miles north of Sacramento. I have a hard time convincing people that there are people north of Sacramento, so we are in the north end of the state. We only have one brewing facility currently. We just announced that we will have another brewing facility in North Carolina in the coming years. So we have one brewing facility right now in Chico, California. We were founded in 1980. We were founded by two men, actually, Ken Grossman and Paul Camusi. And Ken Grossman is an environmentalist at heart. He's very outdoorsy. He enjoys hiking and kayaking and camping. And he understands the environment and he understands the impacts that humans have on that environment. So from getting the business started, he came at it from an environmental perspective and understanding the environmental issues. And this was 70s, late 70s as they were starting the business. So even at that point, Ken really understood the importance of addressing a business's environmental impact. So the business was founded in 1980. Ken took classes at the local community college, welding classes actually, and kind of piecemealed a brewery together with some recycled dairy equipment and tanks, an old soda bottling line, and just pretty much anything he could piece together. That was really from an economic necessity. As a small business getting started, I'm sure a lot of you can appreciate, you just don't have the capital to go out and buy big $1-million bottling lines and spend a whole bunch of capital on getting things started. So the business was started, kind of pieced together. Ken and Paul never really imagined that we would become as large as we are. We are currently the second largest craft brewer in the country, so we are quite large in the craft brewing industry. But we've managed to maintain those early values. We're still privately held. We're currently privately held by Ken Grossman and his family. He bought out Paul Camusi in the 90s, about mid-90s. So being privately held gives us a super advantage over any other publicly traded business or even board, privately owned, but with a board. So I'm incredibly lucky. I get to report directly to Ken, and I do not have to spend a lot of time convincing him that we should have a biodiesel machine, or that we should have this composter, or that we should install solar panels. I spend my time trying to keep up with him and just really maintaining everything that he tries to put in place. So we've got leadership from the top, from the very, very top of the company, and we are led by a person who is not afraid to be an early adopter of technologies. He's not afraid to invest in fuel cells, and he's not afraid to invest in a super awesome composter. He's not afraid to install electric vehicle charging stations, even though they don't get used ever, except by his car. He understands that somebody has to make these investments if technology is going to reach a point where it's feasible for other businesses or organizations to invest in those types of things. So I'm really lucky to work for the man that I do and to work for the company that I do. My job was kind of outlined, and it's a jumble. I have a big job, but essentially my job is kind of threefold, just to kind of put in perspective so we can hopefully gear questions that I might be able to answer. If not, I've got our awesome sales team back there, Anna, Darren, and Will, and they might be able to help me answer some of those questions that are a little more difficult on the sales end, because I think some of those came through. But essentially my job is kind of threefold. One, I maintain existing stuff. So I monitor the solar panels, monitor the fuel cells, manage the recycling, run the composter, make the biodiesel, kind of maintain everything that's already in place. Then a second component is developing and improving those pieces. So looking for new energy efficiency pieces to put in place, or how do we divert more waste from the landfill, automated solar panel cleaning system, biodiesel, soap. The list is huge, it's extensive. And then a third component is education, which is what I really get excited about, and why I'm really thrilled to be here at an event like this, is to be able to share what we've done at our facility, and then hopefully glean some good information and maybe some projects that people have going on locally, just some good information sharing. So I spend a lot of time with our consumers at events and marketing type things. But then a lot of people just in the food and beverage industry as a whole, and really trying to move this whole concept of sustainability into more common discussions, and having more people talking about it at different levels, not just the crazy environmentalist tree huggers over here that are pushing everybody to do these things, but really bring it into normal everyday conversation and have it just be part of a standard business model. So that's kind of big picture. I don't really want to go into more specific things at this point, because I'm going to talk a lot about that tomorrow. So I guess we could just open for questions at this point. Does that work?
Yeah, okay. We have some brewers, particularly.
We're having a hard time with the mic getting all the way down.
Okay.
It's turned all the way up. I don't know if you want to just talk a little louder.
Is this the only speaker? Probably.
So I'm wondering if, number one, there is a fair amount of space up here. So those folks who are going to ask questions, you might want to move a little to the front. But if you could all slide this way. One of the things with this beam in the front here, it does kind of block sound.
Did you hear that?
Here. The mic's as high as it'll go, unfortunately.
In case you didn't hear that, what Sue was saying is, if those of you in the back could come forward, that would help. Thank you. So let's see, of the brewers, do we have someone from Kettle House here? I just want to see who's here. Bayern.
Kettle House, who's here? Tim, where are you?
Kettle House and Bayern.
Careful.
Hi, I'm Tim.
Yes.
Flathead Lake Brewing.
Can't hear you.
Come on, brewers. There's someone from Bayer who's supposed to come up to the front.
Yeah, pass it down.
Torsten!
And Tamarack too, while you're here.
What am I tapping?
You're gonna. Where are you from?
Germany. No, Missoula.
Okay, you're gonna
For
be.
10 years now from Missoula.
So do we have Kettle House yet?
Yeah, me.
Oh, sorry. Okay, you'll go first. Okay, so what we'd like is to hear from each of you, and if you just describe your program a little bit, and then feel free to ask Cheri a question, if you have one. So one at a time, please.
And how much time do we have?
Ideally, 1 to 2 minutes,
All right.
but
We're a small local brewery, and my mom instilled in me a sense of recycling, and my dad instilled in me a sense of beer drinking and fishing on the rivers. So when we opened our brewery, there aren't a lot of options for small breweries to package that are affordable, and a Canadian company came up with a little option that we adopted, and we started canning in something 4 or 5 years ago, and that's been good. And we're really excited to see Sierra Nevada and other larger breweries adopt the can as a viable package to showcase our premium beers. So one of my main goals was to beat you guys to the shelf with our pale ale, Eddie Out Pale Ale, because I knew that they would be coming with Sierra Nevada, and this is like 2 years ago. And we did that, and now we're really excited that you're here with a can and a 16-ounce can too for the torpedo. So so we're doing that. Yeah, we're looking for ways to improve our footprint that are affordable, and we don't have the economies of size that Sierra has. So what is the best thing to start with? And I have some more specific questions I can ask you tomorrow. That was one thing, and I might think of another here in a second. Okay. Follow-up question. Did everybody hear that okay? Was it better to talk that way?
Question.
Okay.
Better than the mic.
Yeah.
If you can be heard.
Okay, so can you guys hear me this way? Or do I have to okay. Louder? Better. Okay, good. It's loud with the microphone up here, so I was trying not to talk super loud. So that's a question that I get frequently, not just from small brewers, but small business, period, is what's the first step that you take without having $2 million to spend on something like solar panels or fuel cells? And although solar panels and fuel cells are super sexy, energy efficiency is so much more effective, and you get so much more bang for your buck by doing that. So just simple things like lighting or heating, space heating and cooling for offices or that kind of thing will make a big difference. Variable frequency drives on pumps and motors. Just general auditing. Actually, that's a big key right there. Just start with an audit. Once you audit, then you can find out where your weak spots are and work on addressing those. And efficiency, whether it's from energy or water or packaging, efficiency is going to give you the biggest bang for your buck, hands down. It's not as sexy, and you're not going to get the marketing value from it, but it's going to make a big impact in your bottom line. Recycling and composting, and I apologize for not knowing more about Montana recycling and composting up here, but okay, it sucks apparently. What I found in California, and being in Northern California, we're rural, we're a very rural community, but we still pay a lot for disposal fees. So spent brewer's grain and yeast aside, because that's a whole different ball of wax, focusing on your waste diversion, you're going to save a lot of money. Just by the materials, the cardboard, shrink wrap, glass, plastic strapping, super sacks, burlap, light tubes, batteries, all that stuff, just excluding grain and yeast. We saved roughly $250,000 last year and brought in $65,000 in revenue just by keeping those things out of the landfill. So again, not very glamorous, but can be really cost effective.
And I think that for some people here, they may not understand the differences in sizes. We do 10,000 barrels, and a barrel's 31 gallons. And I think you guys are 900,000?
800,000.
Yeah, 800,000 barrels. So, in Montana, we got lots of land to throw stuff away, and there's not a big incentive to do that. And it may not be politically correct.
No, that's the same thing that we have in in Northern California. I mean, our landfill can go for
Yeah.
years,
Yeah.
and our tip fees are $30.
Yeah.
But as a business, you probably pay your waste hauler, and you probably pay bin fees and transportation fees, and it's going to add up more than just your tip fee. You'd be surprised.
Yeah, no, and there's no doubt that we do try to, we bought a small dumpster, or we lease a small dumpster, so we are forced not to fill it, you know, with everything that we can. But just wondering what the biggest bang for your buck are.
Energy efficiency.
And my also personal belief is sustainability for a business is profitability. And it's really hard to do everything right and still be profitable. And I have to say we have to crawl over a few dead bodies every now and then to get to a sustainable level where you can start investing in some of these things. And that's about where we are right now, where we can look at some pieces of equipment that might save on energy and waste stream reduction.
Thank you. You want to go next?
Sure. I'm Craig from Tamarack Brewing. Our brewing facility is located in Lakeside, Montana, on the northwest shore of Flathead Lake, but we operate a full-service restaurant here in town, which we're privileged and very happy to be a part of. The brewing community and culture here in Missoula, as thriving as it is. I posed a couple of very specific questions online, which Tim touched based upon here right now, and those were specific towards brewery effluent waste, pH control, solids, stuff like that. Cheri and Tim both touched on a big part of a small brewer in a rural community. And if I could say this before I forget, I graduated from Anderson High School. It's only 40 miles north of Chico. My introduction to craft beer was Sierra Nevada, and hence I'm here today.
These guys are our idols.
They really are.
They're the rock stars in the craft beer world.
For the West, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, also composting too. She mentioned that as part of her thing. And as a small brewer in a rural community, how can we implement that on site? Because a big part of making beer, and a lot of it as we grow, as Kettle House grows and Tamarack grows, is managing our byproduct waste. And it's not all just waste, like it can be used. So how can we do that on site? How can we get the community involved? Stuff like that.
That's an excellent question, something I really struggled with actually. So spent brewer's grain, and again, to kind of put things in perspective, we have 800,000 barrel beer production last year. So we're very large, and we have tons, literally tons of grain leaving our facility every day. And we do have local outlets with cattle and dairy lots, because we're surrounded so closely. It really doesn't get farther than 20 or 30 miles from our facility. So we have a great outlet for grain. But we also have a restaurant. Very popular restaurant in Chico. It's one of the more frequented restaurants in our town. And there's a lot of food waste that comes out of that restaurant. There's also a lot of organic waste that comes from the brewery, from our dry hopping process, from our torpedo process, and then a little bit of grain that gets washed down the drain, from residue that gets stuck to tanks, that gets flushed into our wastewater treatment facility. So from our restaurant alone was about 600 to 800 pounds of food scraps every single day coming out of our restaurant, and that's just going to the landfill. So that was one of the first projects that I really worked on at the brewery. First started there, and actually my first role there was recycling coordinator, and then it a couple months morphed into this big, huge position, but I really focused on composting, and went to our city, I went to the county, I went to all the waste haulers and said, we need a food scraps permitted composting facility for our region. The closest thing to us was over 200 miles away. So I actually loaded up the city recycling manager, the county recycling manager, the county solid waste manager, all the waste haulers, the university. I put them in a van and I drove them to that facility and said, we need this. We need this for our region. After 4 years of communications with the city and the county and no movement because of our low tip fees, no incentive to divert organics from landfill, we finally said, fine, we'll compost on our own. So spent a lot of time trying to motivate the community to do it themselves. It was unsuccessful, so we decided to do it ourselves, spent a lot of time researching, and I can talk with you independently if you want to talk about composting options like small scale, in-vessel composters. So we spent a lot of time researching, we ended up buying one. We installed it September 2010, so we've had it for about a year and a half, and we compost about 2 tons of material every day through the machine, and that's food from the restaurant, hops from torpedoes, which is our dry hopping process, and then grain that ends up at our wastewater treatment facility. Miscellaneous yard debris and that kind of thing run through the system. So about 6 months after I signed that purchase order to buy this super expensive badass composter, one of the waste haulers announced that they were doing food scraps composting. So I think they realized, that we were serious about it and that other businesses were serious about it. I just don't think any other businesses actually voiced how serious they were about it other than Sierra Nevada. So as the community came together as a whole and really put pressure on the city and the haulers, things started to move, and there's now a pilot scale food scraps composting that's accepting other things like grain or filter pads or hops or that kind of thing. So we do compost on site, but it was a struggle. It was hard to get the city and the community to actually do that.
How are you using the end product?
So the way that we're situated in Chico, we're in an urban area, and we have about 15 acres of developed paved warehouses, production facilities, but we also have about 15 acres of field. So we have an 8-acre organic hop field, we have a 2-acre organic garden for the restaurant, produce and herbs, and then about a mile away we have a 30-acre organic barley field, and then we have a huge grass area for events and concerts and stuff. So we have a big use for the end product, which was another motivator for us to actually purchase our own composter and do it on site. So we've got the compost going into the fields. The fields are growing the produce that goes into the restaurant, or the hops and barley that go into our estate ale. That makes the discards that run through the composter, that go out to the field, that go back to the restaurant. So it's a really nice closed loop. And we did have that luxury of having an end use for that material.
And we have one more brewer
Okay.
who'd like to address that.
I might need 3 minutes to get it all in what I got to say here, so I hopefully get the extra seconds, 60 seconds before the music starts playing, after I thanked everybody I know. My name is Torsten. My name is Torsten. I'm the brewmaster at Brewing. We are the oldest brewery in the state of Montana. And we are the brewery that brought back bottling beer to the state of Montana in 1993. You'll probably already noticed I'm not really native to the state of Montana or Missoula. I am a brewmaster from Germany. And Brewing does everything that just got mentioned here before. We look at energy efficiency, we do the frequency drive, we feed the spent grains to cows, get burgers and awesome prime rib back. We do, when we cool our wort, so when all that sugar solution is done boiling, we cool it down with well water, use the hot well water then to mash the next batch. We do all that. But coming from Germany, there was something that was still missing in the whole process of the glass bottles. I mean, basically you order a bottle, you fill it up with beer, you put a cap on it, label, put it in packaging, 4 6-packs in a cardboard box, you ship it out, sell it to the consumer buy it, and then it's out of sight, out of mind. In Germany, you go, you buy a case of beer. You buy 20 bottles in a plastic crate, you bring it back, you get your deposit back, you get a new crate, go home. So we said, what can we do to implement the same? Speaking of community influence, what is there that we can do that is simple enough, because we are probably the only ones carrying the weight of getting it implemented. What can we do? What can we offer up to get the community involved? So everybody says, oh, I want to do it. Here's an opportunity to do it. A couple years back, my son said, why don't you recycle the glass? Well, we cannot do it. It's just not in the system here. So what we did start doing is we take back 6-pack carriers. In the beginning, it was you bring in the 6-pack carrier, we thank you, and we will reuse that reusable 6-pack carrier again. So out of one carrier, we get 2, 3 turnarounds into the market. We said, what else can we do? So then these concrete people came up and said, we do fancy concrete. We grind it up for you, the glass, and turn it into modern days artsy concrete. So we said, we're gonna take back every 6-pack you buy from Bayern with the cap, because it's a metal cap, metal recycling. We buy back the 6-pack from you for 5 cents cash value, 10 cents in-house credit. Reuse it again, and the bottle we're going to give away to a recycler that will turn it into concrete products. So right here we have people being involved in the whole thing. And we did it without a lot of advertising, because I'm assuming nobody else here, or not a lot of people knew about that in the Zoom that we do that. Am I correct, or is everybody aware of that? We said, what would be the next step? Next step would be, we bring in these beautiful glass containers. Everybody has seen these 12-ounce bottles. I mean, the Romans reused glass. What do we have to do to reuse glass? We have to come up with a system how we can run it through the brewery grant, fill it up, and get it out. We don't have to invent a bottle washer. That's already out there. It's done in Germany since after the World War. It's a resource. It's something we have here in Montana plenty of. What do we have to do? So what we're going to do, implement this summer, is get a system on the way where you are allowed to bring in a 12-ounce brown glass bottle to Bayern. You will get money back for it. And we will run it through the brewery, fill it up again, put a cap on it, and send it out. So that's our next step of taking that community involvement to the next level. I think that is if you want to look at it pure, where we want to be sustainable, have it a closed cycle, reuse, reduce, recycle, I think you have to go all the way. It's like a kick. You pick up for a party, you bring back. It's the same with the glass bottle. It should be something that should come back and be reused. And that's what we are planning on for our 25th anniversary, get out this summer and get into the market. Was it 3 minutes, or was it too long, or did I? Okay.
Do you have a question at all for Cheri that you'd like to address?
Didn't I send that in?
No.
I can't remember. Well, my question was, what does it mean sustainable for a big player in the microbrew market?
What does sustainability mean?
Yeah.
How do we define it?
Yeah.
It's a really good question, actually, because sustainability became one of our, I'm in trouble talking to you. So sustainability was established as one of our core company values. There's 5 core company values, and sustainability was established as one. About a year after that happened, I actually sat down with management and said, so, sustainability is a core value. What does that mean? Define it. And it was an interesting challenge to have our management group, who is not necessarily environmentally or sustainability minded, have them come up with what does that mean to them. And you guys should have seen their faces when I actually asked them. They were like, well, small environmental footprint. And I mean, it was a really good exercise. So I posed the question, told them, okay, I'm going to come back to a meeting a month later, and went back to the meeting a month later after they'd had a chance to think about it, and had kind of some key points that came out of that conversation. And small environmental footprint was one. Maintaining the early values that Ken established the company with was another. But the whole philosophy of addressing it from an economic perspective, a social equity perspective, and an environmental perspective. So any project that we do should theoretically run through those 3 filters. And it should have a positive outcome. Should have a positive social outcome, a positive environmental outcome, and a positive economic outcome. That's essentially what came out of that whole conversation. There were some other interesting thoughts that came from some of our management team, but I won't share those.
It's kind of a follow-up to that. When you look at return on investment for a block of solar panels, and I've seen numbers from 14 years to 20, and in this day and age, running a business, if you're not making money in a year, you could be out of money in 13 months. So what is your definition for when you make that call of, we're gonna, I guess if you're got all the kind of cash in the world, you don't care, but from our standpoint, we gotta hoard that cash. So
absolutely.
What is your cutoff?
Do not have a cutoff. Unfortunately, it's a case-by-case basis. Yeah. So, you know, I'm lucky enough that Ken will evaluate a project. He will evaluate the social benefit, he'll evaluate the environmental benefit, he'll evaluate the economic benefit, and then he'll decide a reasonable payback. So every project is going to be different. You know, some things he wants it to pay back in less than a year. Other things, like our composter, for example, he's willing to accept, you know, I don't know, 16, 17-year payback. So everything is kind of case by case, unfortunately.
And another highlight from our size, you know, we talked about solid waste going to the landfill, but a bigger bite for us is liquid waste going to the sewer plant. In our size, we spend about $40,000 a year on those bills.
Where did the mayor go?
Yeah. That more than makes up for all those tickets I haven't paid. But so, you know, you pay $120 a month for throwing extra cardboard away. You know, we do use a local cardboard recycler. That's why we chose cans. It's a recyclable, virtually reusable container. But those are the things that I'm going to really pick your brain about, because that is, if we could find a small digester, or at least reduce our pH numbers and our BOD, which are numbers that we get docked for, that has implications not just for us, but for this growing craft movement. I heard from the Brewers Association there are 800 breweries in planning. And they aren't all Sierra Nevadas. These are small breweries that are doing 500 to 2,000 barrels and selling most of it in their tap rooms. And this is nationwide. And a lot of their waste just gets flushed down the toilet, or the drain, excuse me. So.
Yeah, and we were actually, so as we grew, we were faced with that same dilemma. So the wastewater that we're discharging has some really significant organic loading, and to kind of put some cost numbers to that, as in our city, we would have been paying roughly $7 per CCF. CCF is 748 gallons. So about $7 per 750 gallons discharged into the city sewer system. The city came to us and they said, okay, you guys are growing, your discharge is growing, your organic loading is growing, we have to deal with this. We are either going to raise your rates from $2.50 per CCF up to $7 per CCF. We're going to raise your rates so that we can put the infrastructure in at our facility in order to handle your wastewater, or you can build your own facility. So again, Ken looked at the economics. We found a system that paid for itself in about 3 years, a little less than 3 years. And I think there were some added benefits that weren't factored into those initial calculations. But you know, we were kind of faced with this, shit, our rates are going to more than double. We should probably consider something to mitigate it on our end. And we made that investment. We installed a wastewater treatment facility on site, and it did have some really significant, not only financial benefits for us, but we've been able to recover our biogas that comes from the digester and use that to offset natural gas utility costs. Even though natural gas is cheap, I don't know about Montana natural gas, but in California it's really cheap. So there are some peripheral benefits, but we were faced with the same decision, and it worked out well. Yeah,
my number was off, actually. I did the math wrong. We're more like 18,000. Is that about for
barrels?
No, for our sewer fees. So that's where we, as a business, it's not 40,000. I was doing 4 times 10 for some reason. We pay about $16,000 a year for waste removal. So if you buy some of these systems, they might be $20,000 or $30,000 or even more, and they only take care of part of it. And so the return on investment might be 7 to 12 years. So I feel not like a farce for winning a Sustainable Business Award, but we're doing what we can, but the economics are really tough on a little guy. And I commend you know, Sierra and other breweries that do these sorts of things because they don't have to. And I don't know that the marketing return is measurable. It works on me. So
I have a question. Did you partner with other companies at all? Did you seek anybody who had similar problems to be a part of your, besides the restaurant?
No. No, I mean, we sought advice from other organizations who had been through the same thing, you know, how did you guys deal with this, or how did you pick that system? We sought advice, but we didn't do any partnerships, and it's kind of a benefit and a downfall of working for somebody like Ken Grossman is he has this need to internalize everything. So, I mean, we do all the maintenance on all of our own vehicles. You know, we have mechanics on staff, and, you know, he has this kind of, he's created essentially a little city, you know? So, although we do partner on a lot of things within the community, when it comes to our waste streams and things that we can recycle back in, he tends to internalize that. And we had, I mean, we could financially justify it on our own.
So before we move on to general questions, we had someone from Flathead Lake Brewing that was signed up. Are you here? Do you want to join the group in the front?
My questions have been addressed by Tim pretty much, so
And
thanks.
I understood we had some last-minute folks from Big Sky. Is anybody from Big Sky Brewing here? Do you want to address the group at all?
Someone's got a question, but no, we're good.
Okay, thanks.
But you can tell us about your businesses, both
You
of
guys
you.
want to give a brief
It's an opportunity.
intro to your businesses, both of you?
Sure.
Well, I'm Blake Nicolazzo, and I work for Flathead Lake Brewing. We brew across the lake from Tamarack. Oh, there you are. In Big Fork, so we're lucky to have pretty much the most beautiful office space in America. Super small, 700 plus barrels a year, and as we continue to expand, you know, we have this pub here in Missoula serving all of our styles of beer and food, which is super fun, but as we're moving forward, it's like, what is that going to look like, you know, and how much of a commitment can we make? And I came from a background with Patagonia Clothing Company, another really sustainable, forward-thinking company, so I'm really trying to push that as a big agenda item for expansion. But, you know, we're in Montana. The beer industry is totally cranking here, and super happy to be a part of it. So that's our scoop. You know, we're getting bigger by the day. So thank you. Good.
My name's Joe. I work at Big Sky Brewing. I actually do sales for the brewery in the Northwest, not in Missoula, but Big Sky has always kind of been working towards sustainability efforts, whether they're facility-based, operational-based, or employee-based. And so it's kind of interesting to hear the different sides tonight, especially coming from Sierra's perspective about what is possible, and that's, you know, the coolest part. I mean, there's people out there doing excellent things, and you guys are paving the way.
We have a variety. Can you hear me? Excellent. I'm impressed with that because a hockey stick to the throat 8 years ago. No beer involved. But we do have some questions that people had written in advance, but if they're here, perhaps you'd like to ask the questions yourself. John Baker from Missoula Independent. Then I'm going to ask his question. How do you maintain a high standard of sustainability when expanding from regional to national markets?
That's a good question, and one that I don't have a good answer for, because when I joined the company, we were already a national company. But I will say that our sustainability program has historically and will continue to focus on our operations and really sustaining our internal operations and how we make the beer and whether or not we can make beer for generations. So, you know, marketing and sales are great, but really our sustainability program focuses at the plant level and not really sustaining those sales and marketing efforts.
Chase, do you want to ask your questions?
Sure. I'm interested in some of your internal employee successes. I work for the city of Missoula. We have 500 plus employees, and want to hear what works at Sierra Nevada.
It's probably easier to talk about what doesn't work. Working with our employees, and we also, as a company, we have just over 500 employees. That includes our sales team, but we also have about 120 part-time employees at our restaurant. They're the biggest challenge to work with. Employees have been fun and difficult at the same time. We have found that once you give the employees the education and tell them why we're doing the things that we're doing and the benefits behind it, the environmental benefits, the economic benefits, the health benefits, whatever it might be, give them that education and tell them why it's a good thing to be doing, and then 7 times out of 10 it'll just click and they'll just, oh, well, I can do that, it's super easy. We do get a lot of resistance from a lot of employees, and those are the challenging ones that my assistant Mandy and I really kind of focus a lot of our energy on and really spend a lot of time trying to convince them. But we've had some really good successes with employees that were really reticent to participate and just really didn't understand it. And we asked them to make one simple change, and they said, I don't really want to do that. It's going to be a lot more work for me. One example is in our sensory department, in our R&D lab, we do triangle tests on our beers. So we get 3 cups, and they were giving us all the beer was in glass cups, but we get water, you know, to clear our palate, and those were in plastic cups. We just asked them to switch to a washable glass cup. And they were like, oh my God, you're rocking the world here. It's simple. You're already wanting the dishwasher for the glass cups. Just switch out, you know, the plastic water cups with glass water cups. And she's like, I don't know if it's gonna work. I don't know if we're gonna have time. I don't know if we're gonna have room. And we said, okay, fine, just try it for a week, see if it works out. And they were like, yeah, man, this is easy. We just put them in the dishwasher that's already running, and this is great. You know, so we started featuring those kinds of stories in our monthly newsletter to help spread that with the rest of employees. And we have that employee write the story of why they didn't want to do it, and then why they made the change, and then kind of the positive outcome to it. And that has helped other people, okay, maybe I can make some change. You know, it's hard for people to change what they've been doing for the last 20 years, but having other employees share that story instead of us sharing it helps a lot.
Is Steve Ludke here?
I am.
Would you like to ask your question?
I don't know how sustainable my question is. I was just curious about your open cast brewing process and why you chose to do that.
Ken likes to keep things authentic, for real, and I don't know if Anna or Darren or Will want to pipe up on this one, but the only beer that's really largely marketed that we brew in open fermenters is our Kellerweis, which is over there if you haven't tried that. So that's the Kellerweis beer is brewed in the open fermenters, and then we do some specialty type things that usually stay locally. I don't know that we see it outside of really the Chico market, but that's just Ken's kind of experimentation and understanding beer and how the different processes that go into beer and how you can get different flavors using different methods, and that's just one of his fun experimentations. I don't know, Anna, do you want to say anybody else?
I think you pretty much covered it. I actually could speak more to the employee side of sustainability.
Do it.
Well, going back to this question, that's a really valid question. Our open fermenters are super cool to actually be able to see the yeast alive and consuming the fermentable material. But being an employee of Sierra Nevada, and even one that does not live in Chico, you know, you just see all of the effort that the brewery makes to, I mean, every little thing, it's like, is recycled, or, you know, there's just so much effort being put in that even in Denver, I mean, I send emails all the time like, okay, give me an idea for recycling this, because I feel guilty, tremendous guilt, if anything goes in the garbage that could be recycled, and that stems directly from my employer. So I think if you lead by example, you can have tremendous effect on that, but sorry to not answer the question.
Can I ask something related to that?
Sure.
So the way I look at the craft beer world is sort of a decentralization of, and it's still, our craft market is 4%, somewhere in there, 4 to 5 nationally. Okay. So what I hope to do with all of our craft brothers and sisters is decentralize that. But if you do that, how sustainable is that? You may be reducing transportation costs. But those centralized big breweries have way better efficiencies and can minimize their waste streams. They beat us hands down.
Economies of scale.
Exactly. And so we're kind of going backwards and being, as an industry, more, I guess, bigger footprint because people are drinking locally, but then we're saving. So have you guys studied that? Or because when I'm trying to sell beer, I want to say, hey, it is better to drink local, and here's why.
Growlers.
Yeah, I love growlers. I have not actually, and I don't know if any studies per se have actually been done on that, but it's something that I struggle with internally quite a bit, and something that I've actually seen in the evolution of our company as we've grown just since I've been with them. I've watched barrel production continues to rise, but electricity and water and our inputs continue to decrease. And I mean, the big brewers, the Millers, the Coors, the Anheuser-Busch, I mean, they are so much more efficient with their water and electricity and natural gas than we are. And I just, in our 5 years, I've seen it, you know, our trend continues on their path. So I struggle with that of, how do you keep it local and consume locally and support local business while driving those same efficiencies? And I haven't come up with a good answer yet. I don't know how to do that, or I don't even know if anybody has studied or looked at that. MBA students?
Yeah. If I may toss in a little bit of Travel Channel stuff from Germany. In Germany, usually is the brewery exists around the church in the village. And some breweries got bigger, some breweries stayed smaller. And usually was the bigger breweries ran into the same problem, producing a lot of wastewater. And what happened there is that the community worked together with the brewery and said, hey, let's work together here, build a state-of-the-art wastewater treatment plant. We'll help the community and help you guys and keep the fees stable for wastewater. And the company where I grew up, it was the same thing. We had mixing tanks, and you guys probably have the same too. So you discharge at night when the city is at sleep and the wastewater treatment plant needs product to go in. And we did all that. Then there are other smaller companies or communities. Brewery is always a lot of energy going in. You have to cool down, you have to heat a lot, and every time you see the water coming out, that's steam that can be used to heat up other stuff, and there are breweries in place that will recover all that heat. So you usually don't see heat going out. They will recover it into heat systems, and they will feed the surrounding neighborhood. They just have the water heaters or the piping in place so that houses don't need the water heaters at their place. They just get it from the brewery because it produces so much heat that they can feed the whole community. So just looking at, of course, you can say the brewery itself, you have to be more efficient. But if there's so much output of it and you can spread the joy of the heat, there is quite a bit you can do. I mean, there is stories of places in Germany that had so much cooling, they gave away enough for an ice rink and used the heat that is produced by compressing the gas to heat the houses surrounding it. I mean, there are plenty of stories where they all worked together and there was an incentive to do that, and they just implemented it and it worked for everybody well. So all this, speaking of you going from a local, nationwide, and that's what they did. There was a small community that was local, went nationwide, and the community was profiting of it because now they didn't have to purchase the gas to heat up the water and have hot water in their houses. Little Travel Channel.
There's actually a hospital in Wisconsin that does a similar thing with their brewery. And the waste heat from the brewery heats the hospital domestic water, and it's only about 10% of their water. But it serves both because they needed a place to actually send the hot water, send the heat.
We heat the upstairs at our brewery. We bring the condensation of the cooling unit inside, and we heat the upstairs in the wintertime. And it's amazing how hot it is just by keeping the condensation inside instead of outside.
Rachel Stevens.
Oh, that's me. Hi. I was wondering if your beers are organic. This might be a weird question if they're certified organic, or just because so many breweries advertise their organic beers very widely. And so I was wondering if any of yours are, or if so, why don't you say that?
You know, I've actually had a lot of conversations with Ken about organic beers. We have one certified organic beer, and that's our estate ale. And that's the beer that we make with the hops and the barley that we grow ourselves on site that are certified organic. In that process of having a certified organic beer, we had to certify the entire brewery. So our facility is capable of producing certified organic beers. We've been certified. However, we only use whole cone hops. In fact, we're one of the largest consumers of whole cone hops in
I guess
Excuse
I
me.
know what it is.
the flour that gives the beer the spice and the aroma and the flavor. We only use whole cone hops. There's hops. Thanks, Anna. You're wonderful.
I told you I'd provide support.
Yes.
Do you need a refill on the beer?
Yes.
Thank you.
So this is what a hop looks like. We use only whole cone hops, which are the flowers of the hops, and we use a lot of hops. A lot of brewers and essentially from a cost perspective, I don't know if you guys use pellets or extracts is the typical form that you get the flavor and the aromas from the hops. So being one of the largest consumers of whole cone hops in the world, there is not enough organic supply for us to manufacture our beers organic. There is also not enough certified organic malted barley for us to do our beers organic. So we've had this conversation of, do we do, one beer organic? Do we do no beers organic? And if we do one beer organic, are people going to ask, well, why aren't the rest of your beers organic? And how do you designate the ingredients with the volume that you have for your organic beers and then not raise questions about your other beers? So at this point, we've decided to not do any other certified organic beers other than the estate ale. We have started some pretty cool programs with our hop farmers and with our barley farmers to incentivize them and really understand some of the hurdles that they're facing in changing their traditional farming practices to switch towards more organic or sustainable farming practices. And we've got a couple really nice pilot programs that are going on to both understand but to incentivize the farmers to actually make those changes. So we're hoping to push that forward. We would like everybody to use sustainable and organic farming practices, but at this point at the volumes that we're consuming, it's not feasible for all of our beers. Do you want these hops?
Can I jump in right here?
That's a hop.
Cheri, if I could jump in right here, and this might put you on the spot. We're talking about sustainability. This is kind of a technical question, but as a brewer, and I use pellet hops mostly, to that alone, it's because, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's published that it probably takes 5 to 7 times the amount of fresh hops that it does to achieve the same flavor profile or bittering units from a pelletized hop, which is done so that it stores better, and it's, as a perennial, we can use it throughout the year better. Why do you guys choose to use whole cones when you can get so much more out of pellets?
I've asked Ken the same question, and really, so even though our sustainability program is one of our core values and it's one of our main drivers and it's something that's on everybody's mind, quality comes first. Quality will always come first. It will always be our marketing platform. It will always be our operations platform. And in Ken's opinion, the whole cone hops adds so much more depth of flavor and aroma and complexity than you would get from an extract or a pellet. So he prefers the flavor, the quality that you actually get from the whole cone versus the pellet or an extract. And that's something that we face quite frequently is, here's a dilemma. Do we go with this because it's more sustainable, or do we go with this because it provides better quality beer? He's always going to go with the option that provides better quality beer. Not saying that pellets or extracts do not provide quality beer. Did not say that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's
Are you filtering any of your beers though? And
filter?
Are you filtering any of them and re-adding hop flavor back into them, or?
We do add hop flavor during fermentation, but it is using whole cone hops. So we do a dry hopping process where we filter the fermented beer through it to pick up those added aromas. But it is using whole cone hops.
Is Molly Galusha here? Did you already ask? Would you like to ask your other questions?
What was my other question? Yeah, that's answered. And that's answered too, but I have some new ones. Sure. I have, you're having lunch at my cafe tomorrow, which is in the University District.
The Buttercup Market and Cafe.
Thank you. And when we opened, we wanted to be, have like a buying club with growlers, because we've made a philosophical decision, moral decision, not to have cheap beer, to have local beer, have good beer.
Well done.
So we don't have, I would say PB&J, but that's wrong. And if you walk through my neighborhood, the university neighborhood, on a Monday morning, you will find heaps of garbage, and it's beer.
Red party cups?
It's red party cups, it's recyclable aluminum cans, it's bottles, it's beer. And so what we wanted to try to do was we would go fraternity to fraternity and sorority to sorority and say, if you come to us and buy growlers, we'll get you better beer, less, and in a reusable, and you'll get rid of the garbage. So, I mean, we would be participants in trying to reduce this waste stream. We have arcane bottling and beer and wine laws in the state of Montana. I mean, they basically come out of Prohibition and haven't changed since. So we haven't found a way to do, I mean, I would be happy to partner with you to try to do recycling.
See you next Friday.
But that's, I don't know how else we can do it here, because we don't have good glass recycling. Aluminum, yes. I mean, I love that we're doing the compostable, but these have to be heated. These have to have, we don't have a composting center that really does this. I mean, I want to support this, but you have to have a digester, and we don't have a digester. So there's a lot of people in town that would love to have one. So
I have two things to say to that. One is I respect and sympathize with your struggle, because I have the same struggles in California, but it's much easier to struggle because we're a bottle bill state. So we're a bottle bill state, meaning you leave a deposit on your glass bottle, your aluminum can, and you get that deposit back when you recycle it. So it's really become part of the culture to just recycle your bottles and cans. Mm-hmm. So in Chico, as a big university town that has a big history of unreasonable amounts of partying, there's a lot of cans and bottles generated, as well as the party cups, which are horrible and really a pet peeve of mine. But the cans and bottles do usually end up finding their way to recycling because of that bottle bill incentive. I really encourage, and we spend a lot of time, well, from a sustainability perspective, we have to have this sort of delicate balance with our university system, because our students in Chico tend to abuse our product and kill themselves with it. So we try to kind of neutralize our relationship with them. But try and reach out to the sororities and fraternities and say, hey, if you're going to have a keg, why don't you have a reusable cup? I mean, the keg's at your house. You probably have cups in your cupboard. Have people bring their own cup from home and try and send that message that way, which is really a tricky question, or a tricky thing to work with those guys. But I will tell you that I just met 2 weeks ago with an industry group that was actually led by Alcoa, which is an aluminum smelter, and Ball, and there was a whole host of people from the supply chain, from container manufacturers, all the way down to retailers and consumer groups that were meeting to discuss recycling and how to increase consumer recycling for both cans, bottles, plastic bottles, and paper goods. So we had, I mean, there were big companies in the room: Coke, Pepsi, Miller Coors, Heineken, Walmart, Whole Foods, but then the beverage manufacturers, Ball containers, Owens, Illinois for glass containers, and then down to
consumer advocate groups. And the purpose of the meeting was to address states that do not have a bottle bill, which is 40 states in the country. 40 states do not have bottle bills, so how do we increase recycling rates in bottle bill states? So just wanted to let you know that there is an industry group that covers the entire supply chain aimed at educating consumers and trying to increase those recycling rates, because we want recycled quantity or recycled, we want recycled aluminum cans, recycled content aluminum cans. We want recycled content aluminum or glass bottles. But we can't get that if the consumer doesn't recycle it. And if it's a low quality glass or aluminum, we get a crappy can or a bottle, and then you guys are pissed at us. So it's kind of this vicious circle. So really trying to increase recycling rates, but drive better quality in those containers. It's a struggle, and 40 states in the whole country are having the same exact struggle.
Thank you. Drew Little, would you like to ask your question?
I think we really covered it. I was mainly interested in getting behavioral change in employees, and I think you really gave a nice answer to that. So.
Another question from me. Those of you who are canning in cans, do you know if your cans are BPA free?
They're not.
Is that a possibility?
We spent years trying to find, and that was actually the main reason why we held out on canning anything, was because we couldn't find a can that was BPA free, and currently it doesn't exist. I don't know if you guys have found anything that
No, but New Belgium, I encourage people to Google BPA New Belgium cans, because they reference a few studies about that. And this is what we talk about, crawling over dead bodies. You make these decisions knowing that there's a downside, but hopefully the upside outweighs the downside. And the studies that they reference, I think, are done in Europe, and they have to do with the way BPA is metabolized differently by human beings versus mice, and the amount of BPA in liners is so small it's almost immeasurable. And the bigger problem would be cans of soup that get pasteurized, because that heating process drives the BPA out. And I don't think Sierra is pasteurized. Our beer is not pasteurized. So you're not likely to get any BPA from our cans. You're more likely to get it from cans of soup. Even organic soup that you buy at good food stores is going to have BPA in it.
That same study, one of the things that was mentioned in there was you would have to drink something like 400 or 450 cans of beer every day to meet that, to reach that BPA threshold that then detriments your body.
Yes,
so,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know anybody who drinks 400 cans of beer a day.
We don't, even as beer salesmen, we don't recommend that.
But at the same time, over 90% of us have BPA measured in our urine, so we don't really know what it does. It is possible in canned goods to have BPA-free cans. So I hope that this is still something that the beer market will push.
Not in aluminum.
Yeah.
Not aluminum. These are not aluminum cans. But hopefully that will come.
I would say you probably got it from your soup more so than the beer that you drink.
Yeah, absolutely. It will be.
Stop having soup.
Make your own soup.
Yeah.
I just have one last, because you're here in Nevada and I've been a fan for so long, you've talked about your core values a couple times, and sustainability is one of them. Would you mind sharing the other 4?
I only know 2. And quite honestly, I've asked like 50 employees in the last couple of weeks what the other ones are, nobody knows. Integrity and quality are 2 of the other ones.
Against quality.
Derek, I don't know the other 2. I know there's 5 and I only know the 3.
This is your show.
Yeah, where's Darren? Put him on the spot. Yeah, I don't know.
You should have said we only have 3.
No, that's not what
Humor. Yeah. Humor. Make it
I
ours.
wish. It's not. I don't know. To be
No,
honest,
actually,
totally up to you.
Actually, I think it is community and
employees, or, I mean, it's...
Community, I think, is one of them.
Yeah, community.
I know quality, integrity, sustainability. Community sounds right.
Community is one of them.
We'll just make it up. Nobody will know.
Exactly.
We're going to send this tape to the boss.
I have a question. Is there one thing that stands out in Sierra's history, maybe its early days, that sort of lit the way for a sustainability program, or was just sort of the big flash where you're like, okay, this was worth it, like it was the benchmark of the whole philosophy? Like, was there one thing that stood out that maybe would be very relevant to all the brewers here tonight?
I don't want to be super arrogant, but I think the creation of my position.
Yeah, sure.
For 25 years, sustainability was just part of what we did, and Ken ultimately was the sustainability manager. He was in charge of all of it, and he decided projects and all this, and we kind of grew to the point, and we got so big that he couldn't manage everything, and he couldn't keep his eye on everything, so he decided, okay, we need somebody to kind of do these projects. So I was brought on as recycling coordinator, and then within 3 months, Ken realized, oh, we need a greenhouse gas inventory, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. So my position was kind of created about 5.5 years ago, and I have to say that just having one person designated to these issues and working on these types of things really solidifies the program as being like an official program. So probably 5 years ago was when it became official, you know, and that's when employees started, well, why do we have a full-time person? What does she do? And why does she need a full-time assistant? What do they do? So it's really brought a lot of awareness to everything that we're doing, and people are really starting to accept the fact that, you know, we have a sustainability department and they're focused on these issues, and it's really coordinated everybody's efforts.
Gotcha.
I'll stand up so I'm not on the floor. My name's Skander Spies, and I'm with Energetics. We're one of the sponsors tonight. First of all, thank you for stressing energy audits and energy efficiency. It's one of the things that we do, but just from an energy, from a mechanical engineering standpoint, it's really gratifying to hear you say that. Kind of following on your question, and I was psyched when I came to Missoula and realized that we have multiple local craft brewers. How awesome is that we have this small city? So first off, thanks for that. And I feel like there's this big momentum in the craft brew industry where this is getting popular. You know, there are 800 new breweries planned, and people are, all of us as consumers are really insisting on that quality and insisting on, in essence, a more sustainable system of brewing. I think that's certainly something that people, even if they didn't know that they wanted it, is something that we found that they want. Sustainability sells. Probably many of you as small business owners are really scratching your heads about how can I make my business more sustainable, and how can that sustainability, that embodied sustainability, increase my bottom line. What do you think has really driven the craft brew industry into the limelight? What do you think has helped affect that cultural awareness? Because one of the things we're looking at is that, yes, we know pretty well how to make buildings sustainable. That's our bread and butter. But we are not sure how to really inspire people to ask that question, how to really motivate that. And, you know, what do you think is motivating it in the craft brew industry, and maybe for other small businesses in the room trying to leverage that and find those tipping points?
Well, this is my personal opinion, and I don't know how well it would help other industries, but my personal opinion is that the craft brewing industry as a whole is inherently environmentally minded. I think most of the craft brewers I've met, and, you know, everybody I talk to, it's traditionally part of craft brewing culture. I mean, craft brew relies on quality hops and relies on quality barley, and, you know, making a quality beer, and you only get that when you have a healthy environment. And I think a lot of the consumers in the craft brewing industry or sector are environmentally minded. So I think it's a combination of just general craft culture, and that's just how they are. combined with craft brewers now starting to talk about it, which gets the consumer to start questioning and asking questions, and kind of, I think from the background, the brewers are actually driving the conversation within consumers rather than demanding and asking these questions. So I don't know what you guys think about that.
If I might may throw that in there. And I don't want to say it because a couple of high-end Summit people are here, but for Bayern, it has been being local. Yeah. That's how it all started out. I think when people here in town, or at least the older generation, orders an amber, it is the Bayern amber. It's just being local, being here, being in town, having your own beer. I think that's what started shooting Bayern out of state and selling the beer there. We sell around 40 to 50%, and once again, Summit people, please take it just as a seller compliment, of beer here in town. It's a semi-load we sell in town every week. Any given week we sell that here in town. Yeah. The other 30, 20% stay in the state of Montana. And the state of Montana means western Montana and then the big cities in Montana. And then 20% go out to Portland and Oregon as a general, and Seattle and Spokane, because those are markets that are close by. But most of the beer we still sell here, and for us it was the local thing. I mean, like I said, it started out with Bayern Amber, unfiltered downtown where the X's are at the old railroad station. I don't know if still people here, the first time they had a Doppelbock of a wooden barrel. I heard there are parties. I think even the mayor, if he's gone, he was involved in that, where they had a high alcohol beer and they didn't know what happened to them. And that's what we are still, that's our foundation. It's being local, being here in town. It's our home court. Now we have a couple of other teams here in town, but it is our home court.
We can't fill the demand. It keeps growing, and we're very fortunate in Missoula. People are partisan beer drinkers to Missoula breweries. And even at the expense of some of the eastern Montana breweries that try to get in here, we sell 70 to 80% of our beer in Missoula, and all of it in Montana. I have a whole dissertation, if you want to have lunch sometime, why craft beer is, and craft cheese and locally owned stores and restaurants. I think the Walmartification and the commoditization of beer is undergoing a backlash. People drive to work in a car with their own iPod tunes that they've selected. They get into their cubicle and work all day, and they hardly see another live person. And bars and pubs are where you read faces, and you're a social animal. And beer plays a part in that interchange of intimacy that is being human. And we've removed it by the way we've set up our living systems. And that's why I think craft beers bring people back together and give them what they fundamentally need, and that's that social interaction.
You don't think it's just that it tastes really good?
That might be. And I gotta give some credit to the great art that came out of labeling for beers.
Big Sky Brew.
Yep, we've got 5 minutes, so it's time to wrap up, and I think Sue has something to say.
I do have something to say.
Go ahead.
I'm the administrative coordinator for the Sustainable Business Council, and I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. Don't hesitate to come tomorrow night. Cheri's going to do some more. 6 o'clock, Gallagher Business Building, room 106. Everybody's welcome. It's free and open to the public, so please join us. We also wanted to let you know we do other events other than this annual lecture. We're going to do a First Friday, March 2nd, again, as part of our 10th anniversary. We just moved into a new office, 415 North Higgins, Suite 119. We'd love to have you come join us. We have some 4 or 5 very nice pieces of art that were done for us by local artists at Local Fest 2 or 3 years ago. So we want to show those off and let you see the office, so you can find us in the Higgins Plaza. You go down to the bottom of the stairs, and then depending upon your political orientation, you can take 3 rights or 3 lefts, and you'll be in our office. So please come join us on March 2nd. We have our next STS workshop is coming up. We're splitting it into 2 pieces, March 15th and March 22nd. Those will be over the lunchtime. If you want to talk about doing a sustainability assessment in your business, we do that as part of the workshop. So it's your chance to get a baseline for how you start on sustainability changes. Our next event here at the Loft will be on April 18th from 5:30 to 7. It is Unraveling the Tax Mysteries of Solar Efficiency and Other Renewables. We hope you'll join us for that sustainability shot. And finally, we're going to have a fundraiser on April 22nd, or excuse me, April 26th. It will be a sustainable chef competition. The location is currently in process. We have a couple sites we're looking at. Watch for our emails and things, and we'll let you know where it is. If you're not getting our email, make certain you get an email on the sign-up sheet at the door. Thank you all for coming tonight. We are really excited to see this group, and it was wonderful to have all the brewers here sharing their insights and hopefully collaborating together in the future on new and different things, or at least sharing enough information that will move our breweries forward here in Missoula. So I think there's still a little beer left. Don't hesitate to have a little.
And take glasses.
And there's
Everybody wants some of these glasses.
Yep, great glasses on the end. Remember, there's only a few, so grab some on the way. Board members, hold off till everybody else gets some. Thanks.